Alright, in this video I'm going to talk to you about the pancreas and one of the proteins it makes, which is insulin, something that diabetics lack, and which is why they have to manually give themselves insulin. So insulin is a protein, which we'll get into. That's why I have a protein here, but that's just the main protein the pancreas is known for. However, the pancreas is like a hormone center of the body. And usually when you think of hormones, you think of like teenagers and puberty and things like that. But I want you to think of hormones in terms of biology in general. Hormones is basically like the chemical signals all throughout your body. Okay? And these chemical signals are really important for the immune system, for the brain, for digestion, a bunch of things. In fact, if we didn't have hormones in our body regulating all these things, we would just die because there would be no communication. So it's kind of like the communication centers, like maybe like telephone lines. I don't know, but maybe before before Bluetooth, before we were able to have cordless devices for like phones. Imagine if the whole world before wireless cell phones or wireless phones, all of a sudden all the lines just got cut. The whole world would basically be, set back a lot, if not be in total chaos, depending on how long and what happens. But in the case of the body, if you got rid of all the hormones, there would be no communication between different systems of the body and different things, and we would just be malfunctioning all over the place, and we would essentially die. All right, so pancreas is a very important organ that regulates hormones in the body, mainly for digestion, but also other things. All right, so there are three types of proteins in terms of like the pancreas protein. What do I mean by protein exactly? There's, if you recall, structural protein, which is maybe I don't know what order I'm putting this in, but just to go over this, structural protein is basically proteins that provide structure. So like, for example, hair, cartilage in between the bones, cartilage in our ear, cartilage in our nose. All of that is structural protein. It's just like this kind of architecture, right, of our body. Whoops. Transport proteins are, just like they say, proteins that transport molecules. One that we'll go over in this class is called hemoglobin. It's inside of our red blood cells, and that hemoglobin protein transports oxygen. That's what the thing that attaches to oxygen and helps the red blood cells transport it to other parts of our body that need oxygen. Another type of protein is called enzymes. You may have heard of enzymes, like maybe you take a papaya enzyme in the morning or something that your parents give you. Enzymes are proteins that break down other molecules. Okay, they usually end in ase. So amylase breaks down carbs. Lactase breaks down lactose, which is a type of sugar molecularly, but it's not sugar the way we know it, but it's biochemically titled a type of sugar. So if you're lactose intolerant, that means you don't have enough lactase enzyme in your body. And so you have to take like a lactase enzyme if you want to have like ice cream or cereal with milk or something like that. So physically putting into yourself the lactase enzyme, and then your stomach will be able to break that lactose down when you drink that milk or eat that ice cream. All right, so we're going to be talking about a particular enzyme that's called insulin. Insulin helps break down sugar. So the pancreas does a lot of things like I mentioned. It helps regulate sugar levels by releasing insulin. This is what it's mainly known for, but it does a lot of other things. It helps break down carbs, which are just long sugar chains. Helps break down proteins as well, helps break down fats, but it's mainly known for regulating sugar levels because of diabetics and whatnot. That's what's popularized the pancreas. So, how does it do this? This is what we're going to get into. First, it detects high amounts of glucose in the blood, okay? Sending signals to the pancreas. So the amount of glucose in the blood running through all of our organs sends chemical signals to our pancreas, which is another hormone. And it notifies the pancreas saying that the glucose levels are too high, right? So then what does the pancreas do? The pancreas has these beta cells. Beta cells are basically like mother cells or stem cells that create other things. And so beta cells create proteins. For example, there are beta cells in our immune system that help create antibodies to help fight bacteria, and et cetera, et cetera. There's beta cells create things, particularly proteins and other things. So in the pancreas, the beta cells in the pancreas create the insulin hormone. Once it detects a lot of blood in the sugar, a lot of sugar in the blood, if you zoom into this pancreatic, I guess they're called islets, then you zoom in, there are beta cells that are secreting this protein right here. Zoom into this one beta cell here, and it's creating a protein called insulin. All right, and that protein goes into our blood and helps to, it travels to the liver. Okay, so what happens then? The insulin binds to receptors in the liver, because the liver is a big cleaning center for our blood. After we digest a bunch of stuff, it goes from our small intestine, where it finishes digesting, to our large intestine, and then after our large intestine, everything gets filtered through the liver, and the liver does a lot of filtering for us. So naturally, the insulin will go into some receptors on the cells in the liver. So you can kind of see here a zoomed in version. You don't have to know all these little things. All these things are just proteins and they're just a bunch of proteins working together. So this purple line right here is one of the liver cells membrane. So we're looking at one liver cell. You can see here at the bottom right is the nucleus. And so there are glucose is coming in through these glucose channels, and it's doing all these things. And then there's insulin here at this insulin receptor on this liver cell. And so this insulin helps to uptake uptake glucose, and the glucose gets transported into cells and then broken down after they get uptaken by these insulin proteins. They either are broken down or they're stored for later. Okay, instead of being used, because then it would be too much sugar in our blood. Then finally, once it's finished doing its job, then these insulin soldiers all over, there's just tons and tons all over each cell. They say, all right, our job is finished. We cleaned up all the glucose. Let's go ahead and go home, boys. Kind of like a military mission or something. So finally, the insulin hormone is released from its receptors, and it goes back to the pancreas and is either broken down or stored in order to wait for the next time that there's a lot of glucose in the blood. So if there's not, then it's just broken down and its parts are used and recycled in the body. Or if there is a lot of glucose soon thereafter, then it's used again. And that's basically the process that you need to know about the pancreas. It's a very important organ in our body. And it's just this like second stomach. Some people call it a second brain because of how all of the hormones it helps regulate, and the gallbladder too. It's part of that. But it's, very, very interesting organ. If you ever get into biology and research, this is definitely one thing that is very interesting to research.